Hey everybody, today is Monday, September 6th, and today is Labor Day, so happy Labor Day to all the US viewers in this channel. Today we're going to look at the price of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is finally breaking out above this support level that we've been building over the last couple of weeks, and yeah, finally breaking above 50,000 and really looking like it's going to hold above 50,000 this time instead of falling back right below 50,000. So the question is, are we going to finally hold this level and push up, continue up higher, or is this going to be another fake out rally that rolls over, right? Also, another thing is we're having a golden cross now, right? We had a death cross earlier this year, which basically let the price down lower, but right now we have a golden cross, so 50-day crossing above the 200-day coming up very soon. Is that going to be a catalyst to push the price higher? Now, before I answer this question, please read the disclaimer and you can pause this video as you read it. Okay, so over this weekend, we had a strong push of the price higher. We've been forming a base here. Of course, earlier we had a drawdown earlier this year, but we had a nice recovery, but we hit this resistance level, and these are two very strong resistance levels, right? The first resistance level is this blue line, which is a 200-day simple moving average. Now, this line is really important because in the past we've stayed above this blue line during the entire bull rally, right? For example, from 2015 to 2017 bull market, the price of Bitcoin stayed above this blue line, the 200-day simple moving average, right? And so it was very worrying when we finally broke below the blue line over here back in May, right? This is a capitulation due to China cracking down on miners, shutting them down, causing the hash rate to plunge, and also, of course, Elon Musk suspending Bitcoin as payment for Tesla cars, right? So those two things really just hit Bitcoin hard and pushed it below the resistance, support level over here at 200-day. When we fell below, we actually stayed below for 3 months. So this is how strong this level is. We failed to hold it, and it was very difficult for price of Bitcoin to recover, right? But finally, Bitcoin staged a recovery, and finally, we've broken above the 200-day, but it wasn't easy, right? If we look at the line chart to make it easier to see, we actually came down and broke below a couple of times before staying above and trying to retest it. And this time we actually stayed above the 200-day moving average. So it does look like Bitcoin is trying to form a strong base of support here before pushing up higher and retesting the previous all-time high of around 65,000, right, set back in April. Now the second level Bitcoin has been trying to second level of resistance Bitcoin has been trying to break above is this Fibonacci resistance level over here, right? We can see this Fibonacci channel. Each channel has a different color, but these levels are basically strong support or resistance levels, right? For example, when Bitcoin had a strong rally earlier this year, it actually had its first correction, came down to 30,000, held it as support, as strong support, right, and this Fibonacci support level before continuing up higher. And we also held that as support in the middle of this year when we came down and retested 30,000 again. And so these Fibonacci lines are strong support and resistance levels. And we actually held support earlier this year at around 47 to 50,000, right? But when we broke below over here, right, we flipped the support into resistance. And so with Bitcoin recovering and coming up, we are actually hitting this we have to break above this as resistance. And right now, Bitcoin is trying to flip this resistance back to support, right? When it broke from support to resistance over here. And I think Bitcoin over the last couple of weeks has been trying to do that. And from the looks of it, it's been successfully doing that because we are having a strong breakout higher over this weekend. And it seems like Bitcoin is finally trying to break out higher above this base of support that it's been forming for the last couple of weeks. So I can see the price of Bitcoin go up higher and challenge the previous all-time high of 65,000 probably within this month, because look over here, we have something called a golden cross about to form, which is when the 50-day crosses above the 200-day moving average, right? Here we have the 50-day, and over here we have the 200-day, and they're going to cross very soon within the next week. It seems like the more steep Bitcoin goes, the sooner they will cross. So who knows, if this thing pulls back, then of course that'll take a lot longer, but by the looks of it, Bitcoin does seem to be finding more bullish momentum. And we'll look at our oscillators very soon to try to see if that's the case. But for now, I want to talk about why this is really important, right? There's something called the death cross that we had earlier this year, and I made a video on that. I made several videos on that. It's over here when the 50-day crosses below the 200-day, and this is important because this is basically saying a short-term moving average crossing below a long-term moving average. And this is usually one of those things that institutions look at, right? The institutions, they like to look at the 200-day moving average as their long-term support levels. And if we break below, like we did in May, that tends to cause institutions to start selling, right? And when you have another strong technical bearish across, which is the death cross, 50-day crossing over the 200, and we saw, of course, the Bitcoin price reacted to that as institutions, big money started to sell, right? Fortunately, we had a strong bounce over here and a nice recovery, and it does seem like we have another possible technical catalyst coming up, which is this golden cross, right? The golden cross is when the 50-day crosses back above the 200-day, signaling more bullish momentum, right? And I think that's going to give traders more confidence to take bigger bets on the bullish side and push the price a lot higher as they buy back into this market, right? And so right now on price action wise and moving averages, our Fibonacci lines, everything is looking very bullish right now. So let's look at our oscillators, right? Oscillators, it was a bit worrying because the price of Bitcoin was recovering, but it was starting to come down a little bit, right? So, and this was worrying because this exact scenario played out earlier this year where we had our oscillators come down, right? The MACD come down, but the price of Bitcoin was rising, and this was a bearish divergence, which was confirmed by this big drawdown, right? So another thing that was worrying me was that the price of Bitcoin was going up, but the oscillators were going down, right? MACD is coming down, but it seems like the MACD is starting to cross, right? Starting to cross right here into a bullish territory. Plus the histogram bars are starting to print a green bar. So the more green bars we print, right, we want to see this cross and the lines cross and move towards the upside, and that's going to be more bullish momentum coming in, right? More buyers coming in rather than sellers distributing to the buyers. And we also want to see more volume on the buy side, more green, stronger, larger green bars on the volume. And RSI also similarly downtrend as the price is rising. Very worrying because this is exactly what we saw earlier this year, right? The price is rising while the RSI momentum is starting to wane, and that also predicted the 55% drawdown we saw in Bitcoin earlier this year. But we want to see, of course, RSI break above this downtrend, right? And we can do that if there's more buyers coming in, right? And we want to see strong volume from the buyers to push the price up higher. But other than that, I think that right now Bitcoin is forming a strong base over here of support and trying to push off that base instead of coming down to retest it a couple more times into support, right? I want us to continue up higher, push up higher. Soon enough, we'll have this golden cross over here, which is going to give us a nice technical catalyst. And I think the next major resistance is our previous all-time high, which I believe we will challenge by the end of this month. If we continue to go up higher, if we go sideways, then yeah, it might be within the next month, but I do think it's possible within this month. And of course, 65,000 is our next resistance level, a major resistance level. And once we break that, then it's all price discovery from here. And 100,000 is definitely on the table, so that's very exciting. We still have four more months, a little less than 4 more months left in this year. Anything can happen. You know, Bitcoin tends to move very big historically in the fall, right, of its bullish years, and certainly Q4 is going to be looking to be very spectacular if we can break above the all-time high by the end of this month. We'll have October, November, December to go up even higher, perhaps to 1, 2, or even 300,000. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's look at some other indicators and things that could help us predict where the price of Bitcoin may be going into the future. Total hash rate, right? Hash rate is staging a nice recovery right now, right? Obviously, we're not at the all-time high for hash rate yet, and this is reflected in the price of Bitcoin, right? Like April 14 is our previous all-time high for the hash rate, and April 14th was also the all-time high here of the price of Bitcoin, right? So as the price of Bitcoin recovers, the hash rate also recovering as well. And as long as the hash rate recovers and pushes higher, I can see Bitcoin continue to go higher. Fear and greed index is at greed right now, extreme greed, and this is not necessarily a bad thing because in strong bullish when the price action in Bitcoin is going up higher, fear and greed index levels can remain elevated, right? Just like in a bear market, fear and greed index levels can be very low for a long time during bear market. So the fact that we are starting to see the thing to notice is that right now we're above 70, right? In the previous bear market in 2018, Bitcoin it did during these bear market rallies where the price would just shoot up maybe 50 to 100% before going down even lower. We did get momentarily flashes in the greed zone, right? But then that didn't last long; it just came down. So that was just basically just a bull trap to trap people who thought that Bitcoin had bottomed, but it kept going down lower. So the fact that we're staying above 70, right, which is like the highest level it hit back in February 2018, right, during the bear market. The fact that we're staying above 70 for a long time, this to me shows that we're not in a bear market. That we have more upside to go, right? This isn't a bear market rally that we're seeing right now. Likely, right? I mean, of course, nothing is 100% certain, but I would say the probability that we are going to continue higher is a lot higher than we're going to continue out lower based on all the analysis we talked about over the last month. but also just the price action we've been seeing over the weekend, where Bitcoin continued to find strength, not only breaking above 50,000, but holding strong above 50,000. Strong break over this weekend for our chart, finally, forming this strong base, trying to break above 50,000 and finally bringing about 50,000. So hopefully we can hold this and continue up higher. And the golden cross should give us more of a technical boost, technical catalyst to boost the price higher. So moving on to some of these charts. 2-year multiplier, right? 2-year multiplier signals an exit above this orange line in the shaded area and signals a buy signal below this green line, right? In this green shaded area. So far over the last decade, it's pretty much called it very, very accurately, right? It doesn't tell you exactly where the top is, but it gives you an idea of where you should start selling, right? I think this chart is very good because it basically says, like, I think a lot of people try too hard to time the tops and the bottom, and it's very difficult to do that. But if you can just like buy within certain zones where things are oversold and sell where things are overbought, you can still make a lot of money. You might not time it perfectly, but that's fine, right? It's a lot less stressful to do that. So right now, Bitcoin is trending within the middle of this channel, right? We haven't broken below. During a bear market, we tend to move down and break below the green line, right? So the fact that we're not even moving down anymore, we're seeing a strong bounce. It just shows that, it tells me that the probability of this being a mid-cycle correction rather than a bear market is a lot higher. The probability of this being a mid-cycle correction is a lot higher than it is being into a bear market, right? So another thing is that as Bitcoin continues to recover, this upper boundary, this upper line over here is going to continue up higher. And this line right now is 110,000, right? And we saw that not only does Bitcoin hit this level, but it will overshoot. So this basically predicts that Bitcoin will go a lot higher than 100,000, right? And we're in the middle of this channel. So by the time Bitcoin hits this line, this upper boundary line, this line is probably gonna be around, like, I don't know, 150, I don't know, a lot higher than 110, right? So that's gonna give us even more higher potential exit signal, right? So this is looking very bullish. This looks more like a mid-cycle correction rather than a bear market, right? So price cycle top indicator also tells us to buy back into the price of Bitcoin when the price of Bitcoin goes above this orange line, right? And the green line is above the orange line, like over here. Green line above orange line, price action above the orange line. Good time to buy, right? Good time to buy here, good time to buy here, good time to buy here, good time to buy here. And right now, we are starting to see something similar. Green line above orange line, price above the orange line. And not only that, it seems like the momentum is it's continuing to go up higher, right? In a bear market, we might have a false positive, where a false signal, where it does break above the orange line, but it quickly goes below, right? Goes above the orange line, but starts to find momentum or waning momentum, and it eventually dips down, goes down lower. The fact that Bitcoin is not only breaking above, but continuing to move higher is a very bullish signal. And I do think that this is telling us we are like also in a mid-cycle correction rather than in a bear market, right? And not only that, but if you look at these lines, these bands are very wide, meaning that Bitcoin can overshoot and go up a lot higher before this crosses and gives us an exit signal, right? Because you see these dotted lines. This is telling us to exit when the orange line crosses above the green line, right? So there's still a lot of time, or a lot higher the price can go before this thing starts to cross. So either Bitcoin is going to go up higher and cross later next year before these lines cross, or Bitcoin is going to accelerate into the end of this year and causing these lines to cross very soon. And I think that's gonna happen. That's what the latter is gonna happen. I think that going into the end of this year, the price of Bitcoin is going to accelerate, just like over here, 2013 or 2017, like it always does. In the end of the year, it goes parabolic, and the bands are going to cross, and that's gonna give us an exit signal. So plenty of upside on this, right? Because we're still fairly wide apart. It's not gonna cross too soon. We can get a lot of upside action, maybe up to 200,000 or 300,000. So, but of course we have to wait until there's more confirmation to get more of an accurate prediction, right? Powell multiplier telling us to signal when these red line crosses into the shaded area over here. We haven't even touched that yet, so still a lot of upside left. Pretty much in neutral territory, although we were oversold over here, so this could have been a good buy entry looking back, right? So still a lot of upside, nowhere near overbought, still in neutral territory. Golden ratio multiplier, of course, tells us to sell when we hit this dotted line. But this dotted line doesn't print until the price of Bitcoin hits above purple, breaks above purple, right? So we're nowhere near that. Something to look at, right? We bounced strongly. The price of Bitcoin, it broke slightly below the orange line over here, right? But it quickly recovered. Every time Bitcoin is in a bear market, it tends to break below and stay below for a while, right? 2014 and 2018. and of course back here, early days of Bitcoin, right? 2011. The fact that we're bouncing strong and continuing to recover tells me that this is not a bear market. This is likely a mid-cycle correction, and we will likely see a recovery not only up to this upper boundary, but beyond, and we'll likely print a dotted line and touch that dotted line, giving us an exit signal later near the end of this year, in my opinion. So also, just like we saw on our arterial multiplier, we saw the upper boundary lines go up a lot higher as Bitcoin price recovery. So this is going to give us a potentially higher exit signal, a higher potential exit signal price. So lots of upside, nowhere near oversold. Nowhere near overbought. We had an oversold signal over here, and there's just a lot of upside, right? Yeah, so everything is looking very bullish so far. Logarithmic growth curves is telling us that the price of Bitcoin is nowhere near overbought yet, right? You can see over here, this yellow line, this red line over here gives us an exit signal, right? Here, 2013, 2017, and so far now, we haven't even touched the upper boundary, right? In fact, it does seem like we are in a mid-cycle correction, right? Like this line touching this middle orange line is very similar to what we were in September. So similar date as well, 2017, and before we had the big parabolic run into the end of the year, right? And similarly, in September, we also were touching the middle boundary line here, middle channel line, right? Over here and over here. So very similar setup to the end of the year as we had in our last bull cycle in the year of 2017. So if Bitcoin can hit this upper boundary by the end of this year, should be at least easily over 100,000. We don't know how long this only goes up to early December, so this can be like 150,000. I don't know, but we'll have to see how the price action develops going forward. But still, the main takeaway is that there's still a lot of upside, right, to six-figure level. So very bullish looking chart. Z-score telling us to signaling an exit when we see a sharp spike into this red zone, sometimes overshooting, right? And we haven't even touched that zone yet, so still in neutral territory. Still a lot of upside, right? Nowhere near overbought. Nothing is telling us we're overbought on any of these charts, right? Nothing on any of these charts is telling us that we're overbought. So still a lot of upside. Still likely in a mid-cycle correction rather than in a bear market. Last, let's look at the stock-to-flow model, everybody's favorite chart to look at. Of course, the stock-to-flow model tells us that the price should, on average, be around where the red line is, right? So right now, Bitcoin should be around 80,000. But of course, we see in a bull market, we tend to overshoot going into the parabolic phase near the end of the year, right? Near the end of the year of the bull markets, we tend to overshoot, and in the bear market, we tend to overshoot to the downside, and eventually we stabilize somewhere along this red line before moving up to the next cycle, right? And of course, these variance or deviations from the red line for the price where the price should be is charted down here, and you can see that is looking very similar to what we were in 2017, right? When we saw this mid-cycle correction early this year, we peaked at around July, this model variance around July. But also, look over here. This model variance is also in July of 2017. So very similar time frames, 2017 and 2021, right? Very similar in terms of the time frame. And if we follow this pattern going up to the end of this year where we overshoot, like we follow this variance, where we overshoot to the end of this year, we should see similar chart pattern going up to easily before above 100, maybe to 200 or 300,000 based on this chart. But the point is that there's still a lot of upside, right? I might not know exactly where the price will peak, although based on this chart, it does seem like it's at least above 200,000, but definitely we'll have to wait until the end of this year to give a more accurate price prediction. But the point of this chart is, and the point of everything that we've looked at so far is that Bitcoin seems very like not overbought at all, right? It seems like we were very oversold earlier this year, in the summer of this year, right? And there's just so much more upside to go, and it does seem like we are more in a mid-cycle correction rather than in a bear market. So yeah, everything is looking very bullish right now, very bullish, and Bitcoin continues to push higher and tries to challenge the all-time high, which I believe will happen by the end of this month, if the golden cross happens very soon. And so yeah, just to summarize, everything is looking very bullish, and I think that okay, so in the short term, I do want to see Bitcoin at least stay above 50,000 because we spent so much time. Like I said, we built support above the 200-day, we built support above the Fibonacci resistance and turned it into Fibonacci support for now, right? But we need to confirm that by continuing higher and challenging the previous all-time high around 65,000, right? If we roll over and worse, break below, it's going to be very bad news for Bitcoin, right? But for now, we got to give benefit of the doubt to the bulls, right? This will likely continue up higher as long as we stay above 50,000 and above, of course, these strong support levels, 200-day and Fibonacci support level here. So in the short term, what I'm looking for next is the golden cross, right? The silver line crossing the blue line over here, which likely will happen within the next week, easily this month. And I think that's going to give us the next technical catalyst to push the price of Bitcoin higher, right? Just like you can see how before the death cross happened over here, Bitcoin's price was already coming down, right? And when it crossed, it just exacerbated it and made it go down even worse, right? So of course, right now we're seeing something very similar, but the opposite side, right? We're seeing the price of Bitcoin go up before the cross happens. And when the cross finally happens, probably within the next 7 days, we'll probably see the price of Bitcoin accelerate to the upside rather than to the downside when we had their death cross, right? Death cross here and possible golden cross coming up within next week. So a lot of possible bullish momentum coming up by the end of this month. I do think that we will challenge the all-time high by the end of this month. So yeah, so just one more thing before I end this analysis video for today. I want to look at this chart. I've said this chart many times, right? This is a possible bearish scenario where the price of Bitcoin hits the line over here, which is the 50 weekly simple moving average, and it bounces above before crashing down below and entering bear market. Our signal that Bitcoin is in a bear market is if we bounce and fail to hold this bounce and it closes below the silver line, right? And it continues down lower. So right now, Bitcoin has, let me actually flip to a clean chart here. We've had that bounce right here. So the question is, are we going to continue down lower? If we break below the 50 weekly or this line over here, if we break below that and roll over, that's going to be a bear market. But for now, as long as Bitcoin continues to move higher, the probability of this entering a bear market is very low. So for now, that is something that I think that warrants talking about, right? We don't want to just be like blindly bullish, right? We want to think about possible bear scenarios. So if Bitcoin does roll over, that looks like it might happen. But for now, as long as Bitcoin continues to defend these support levels, right? I talked about the 200-day and the Fibonacci support level. As long as we continue to defend 50,000, we move towards the previous all-time high of 65,000. We'll probably face major resistance there before pushing up higher. If we can do that, then this scenario is off the table. But for now, we still need to talk about this scenario as long as we continue to stay below the previous all-time high around 65,000, right? So I try to be as realistic as possible and think about all the different scenarios, right? We don't want to just look at the bullish case and not think about anything that could happen on the bearish case, because things can go wrong sometimes, and you need to be prepared to protect your portfolio, to protect your account from sudden move to the downside, right? So that's just a potentially bear scenario. Every day that Bitcoin stays above 50,000 and goes up higher, the probability of that bear scenario playing out goes lower and lower. And I actually don't think that we are in a bear market. Like I said many times, I don't think this is going to play out, but it's still something that warrants talking about, right? Because it is still a possibility. Even though it's a low chance of happening, it's still a possibility. So we still need to talk about it, at least until Bitcoin reclaims the all-time high, 65,000, and pushes up higher, right? So anyways, just to summarize, as long as Bitcoin stays above 50,000, that's good. I want to see Bitcoin stay above 50,000. I don't want to see us roll over and continue down low, right? As long as we stay above 50,000, this golden cross happening soon within the next couple of days should provide a nice catalyst, a nice rip up to the previous all-time high around 65,000, and we can challenge that again. Probably will face some resistance, but once we break above 65,000, then I think $100,000 is on the table. And obviously, based on everything that I've talked about, all the indicators, all the charts that I've talked about, I think 100,000 is just the beginning, and we can go a lot higher than that, maybe $200,000 or $300,000. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll update you guys as the price action of Bitcoin continue going forward. And yeah, I'll talk about this more in upcoming videos. And thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, useful, and informative, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for updates. I appreciate all your support. Thank you again, and have a great day.